Welcome to the Rich Mind Podcast.
Yeah, probably, but who cares?
Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter what people are thinking about us out there. No,
Yeah.
we do care a little bit, but at the same time, you just have to just kind of be yourself. And that'll be the topic of the next episode. So stay tuned to the very end. We'll describe kind of what Greg and I are talking about right now. But in today's episode, we're super glad that you joined us here today. Welcome back to the Rich Mind Podcast. Randy Wilson here with Greg Junge. We're going to talk about some self-sabotage. In the last episode, we went into as deep as I possibly could. And let me just say that right up front. If you have more questions about that, or maybe you're catching this one before you listen to the last episode, I would recommend you go back to the previous episode about core wounds. Listen to that one first, because that's going to piggyback off the discussion we're going to have today. That would be my first thing. Now, if you did listen to the first one, and even after today's conversation, you still have questions, you're not sure maybe some of the things that I'm trying to describe, or you have some personal examples to share or anything like that, don't hesitate to reach out to us, info@richmind.co, and let us know. I will do the best I can to describe how I mean, or what I'm meaning by what I'm sharing. And at the same time, Greg can share some of his examples as well. We'd be definitely more than happy to try to help you with that. But part of the core wound for myself was that I realized that I was self-sabotaging myself to any type of success that I wanted because of, or in a large part of, these core wounds that I had set up, these stories that I had told myself virtually my entire life. I shared the story about with my father, but I've had other stories. Bullying is like a term that, people talk about all the time, people being bullied. And I mean, I was bullied. We're all bullied, I think, at some point, so it's a common everyday occurrence when you're a child, right? You're being bullied by someone. I've got bullying stories about being in fights on playgrounds and who knows, being laughed at because I did something stupid or whatever. But a lot of those triggers were core wound issues that I had that I've been trying to work through my entire life, which has set me up to self-sabotage a lot of my own personal success, which is the discussion that I want to have here today with our friend Greg Junge. So Greg, what are your thoughts on some self-sabotage, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have, these tendencies. We've all had most likely experiences doing it to ourselves, self-sabotage, right? Whether we recognize them or not, awareness is usually the first step in most of the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, self-sabotage, I mean, it relates to a lot of different things. It relates to your behaviors, what you do, the actions you take. And then more importantly, I think it's the thoughts that we have in our heads of, negative self-talk or procrastination. Avoidance is probably another one, I think, that we can all kind of relate to. But we'll kind of get into it. But just realizing it's thoughts, behaviors, actions. There's probably a few other ones that I'm missing, but those are the top three that really come to mind for me.
And I'm sitting here nodding my head the entire time because yes, that's all been my experience, right? That's where on the podcast, folks, I try to share my experiences, the things that I've learned. I try to get stories from other people as well and have them share. That's where bringing Greg on as a co-host, getting some different perspectives is going to help me. Hopefully it'll help you out there as well to hear some different ideas coming from different points of view, different walks of life. But the idea is to try to share with you as many stories as possibly can. But you're 100% correct. That's been my experience, is that, yes, the self-sabotage has, and it's all been me. Like they're my decisions. Like you said, it's self. But until I was realizing that I was doing them based on these stories that I was telling myself with these core wounds, I didn't realize I was not happy with myself. Like I would stop liking myself. It's like I would complain about the result that I was getting, which was something that I felt that I should have, a success that I should achieve. So I was complaining that I wasn't receiving that result or that positive success, but it was because of the self-sabotage is the reason why I wasn't receiving the result, right? So it was a negative loop. For the longest time, I couldn't get it to stop. And my core wound always led me to then I would just shut things down. So it could be a friendship. It could have been a relationship. It could have been something I was trying to physically do. I've shared on the podcast before. I remember I started YouTubing back when YouTube was brand new. So that's how long I've been doing this. And so I had a brand I was trying to create called Your Focused Vision. And I was working so hard because it was hard back then. It wasn't as easy as it is today, but it was hard. And I let some negative things that somebody either said or something I was perceived, right? It triggered me into a negative spiraling event. I just shut it down. I just stopped. I stopped. And I think back to like now that I've come to where I am today, and I think of where could I have been or where could I be had I just continued, just kept trying to push myself outside this comfort zone, outside this core wound. Where would I be? And I think I sit with that a lot. But the good news is I've pushed forward, and that's where the rich mind is come back. And that's where I've told myself from the very beginning, I can't stop. I won't let a triggering moment stop me. I've had them. I've had the triggering moments. I've had the expectations of whether it's results, whether it's downloads, whether it's listens, whether it's followers, whether it's whatever. Doesn't matter. Likes on social, when I share about it on social, doesn't matter. Those events in my past, so let's say pre-COVID, so pre-2020, I would have shut this one down a long time ago as well. But because of the work I've done for myself and with myself, to begin to understand that it's me, it's my decisions, it's my self-sabotage, I've been able to push through and continue on. Now, I might not do it great every time, meaning I might not show up in the best version of myself every single time, but I've committed to showing up and bringing on people, guests, co-hosts like Greg. It's been a lot of fun. I've turned the journey into being from challenging to a fun experience, and who knows where it's going to go. But yeah, that's been a little bit about, maybe some background as far as my self-sabotage pattern. Any thoughts like that for yourself as far as anything that comes to mind as far as how you would self-sabotage?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I think I definitely fall in the avoidance category of just kind of steering clear of like opportunities that I know are going to be good for me, but my self-doubt gets in the way of, well, maybe I'm not good enough to achieve that goal. Or, I mean, for me, it was, growing up, it was weight. I was a chubby kid. And then even in high school, I really wasn't overweight. I was actually pretty like lean, like looking back. But in my mind, as like a senior in high school, I still had that, that chubby 7th grade kid in my mind. So it really held me back from pursuing romantic relationships. Like I started a little bit later, dating women and everything in college. But, knowing what I know now, as a 45-year-old, I would have, told my high school senior self, you're good. Like you're fine. You have nothing to worry about. And what's the worst that's going to happen? It would have been a totally different approach to, just pursuing a romantic relationship. But I just avoided it as much as I could because I was afraid of fear or fear of failure, for sure. Fear of rejection, obviously, when you're asking a girl out and you never know what's going to happen. But knowing what I know now, it's, well, let her tell you no. Don't put that no in your head, assuming she's going to say no. And that's just one example. It could be business, it could be fitness, relationships. But that's one that came to mind really quickly of my high school self not being good enough and just avoiding even pursuing a romantic relationship because I just had low self-esteem. And that was the biggest example that just popped in my head.
So can you think of like an exact example? Like, can you think of one? Because they're again going with that core wound exercise. Can you think of one, and whether you can feel comfortable enough to share it or not, that's up to you. But can you think of like an example of a moment? Because I think, like I've mentioned in the past, that when you have it happen and then you could discover it, like it's like you feel it in real time. Like I said, for me, it was like a physical experience. My temperature would rise. I would feel like a pressure headache. And I'm just curious, can you think back to a triggering moment, like a specific triggering moment, and how that's impacted your decisions, maybe even up to today?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of, so going back to like high school, I can actually think of, maybe it's not a triggering moment, but it was like just to show how much I avoided like going out with girls, or, I talked to girls obviously in high school and everything, but I remember specifically like looking back, I was so naive about everything because I just didn't think that was going to be an option for me to go out with a girl in high school. And I can think of specifically a couple of girls looking back on it. I was like, oh, they were totally flirting with me in high school. And I could have, pursued a relationship or, whatever that was, but I just never did because I just played that avoidance card of, well, they're not going to want me to, be their boyfriend or whatever that looks like. So I can like literally go back. I have 2 two people in specific in my mind right
You
now.
can picture them in your mind right now.
I remember the examples.
Isn't that crazy?
And I was just like, how did you not see that? And how did you not take advantage of that? Or, because that's something that I wanted, but I wouldn't allow myself to get there because I was, telling myself no and self-sabotaging myself before I even gave myself a chance. So yeah, I mean, just having that naivete back then and looking back on it now, like I said, like knowing what you know now is very different than what you know 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. It's eye-opening for sure.
So fast forward then to now, I turned 50, you're mid-40s, early mid-40s. Do you see that kind of pattern even still happening today? It doesn't have to necessarily be with a relationship like that, but is there anything that's going on that you can feel or see like a triggering moment for yourself now, even today?
Definitely avoidance. I think what I do sometimes is, as an entrepreneur, I don't have a 9 to 5, but I think what I do sometimes is overcommit to maybe 2 or 3 or 4 different, call them projects or hustles or whatever you want to call it. And then it just makes me avoid facing, those important tasks or responsibilities of, hey, maybe pick 1 or 2 things and really go after it, as opposed to, well, I'm busy doing this, I'm busy doing that. And that's a way for me to kind of halt my way of moving forward a little bit. And even this conversation with my wife, I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I want to pursue this. And she's like, where are you going to do that? How are you going to have time to do that? Because you're doing this, you're pursuing this license. So yeah, so it's one of those things that I'm aware of and it's something that I'm currently working on, but it's hard. It's hard to really face that reality of I'm doing this to myself. You know what I mean? And I think this episode, talking through it with you, is going to, help me out a little bit and probably give me a roadmap as opposed, and addition to our listeners as well.
Well, good, because I've got a couple more questions for you. I want to try to, if that's okay. Is it okay if we go a little deeper in that?
Yeah.
So once again, I don't want you to share things you don't feel comfortable doing, but I think that if we can go a little deeper, it'll help folks kind of maybe see these kinds of things in themselves, right? That's where I've shared a story and I can share more stories, right? If you have questions for me, I can do that. But I'm just curious as you feel like you need to continue to go do, like you, and this is what you've said, and let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So it's like you've got several projects, several pokers in the fire, like you're trying to achieve a lot of things. Because you're focusing on so many things, you're so spread out, you're not necessarily achieving one result, the result that you're looking for in any of them. So it's like you're so spread so thin. And are you relating that result or that these triggering moments today, is that stemming back to these core wounds that you've had in the past as far as whether you felt worthy or not lovable? Can you see the correlation there at all?
Yeah, I definitely can. I mean, like I said, the fear of failure is definitely top of mind for me. And I'm trying to overcome that and not really care what people think, because people fail all the time, right? And failure, I've heard this a million times, failure is just a part of success, right? And, when you fail at something, it means you failed at that event. It doesn't mean that you're a failure, that your self-esteem should be lowered. It's all just a stepping stone and a learning lesson. So one of the things I'm really trying to put together in my head is, honestly, nobody's watching my failures, right? Like, I mean, you could put them on social media for sure, and I could say, hey, I'm going to start this kind of business.
Imagine if we did that.
Well, man, it would be a totally different world.
I failed today.
Yeah, it would be a totally different Facebook world or any kind of social media. But I think that's one thing that I'm really trying to kind of understand, and maybe it's more like philosophical, but nobody really is looking at my life and thinking, oh, Greg should be 2 steps ahead of where he is now. All the judgment is in my own head.
100%.
Even with my wife, like she's like,
right.
we're good, we're fine, we're doing this and you're doing that and whatever. I'm just judging myself of where I think I should be based on nothing really, based on what other people like, we've said on this podcast, we're all running our own race and we're running, it slowly, fast. Some people move quicker, some people are more athletic, but we're all running our own race, and it doesn't matter, where you finish, as long as you define your success, and then you kind of see that out. So I'm really trying to get other people's opinions and judgments really out of my head and just, focus on myself and kind of be a little selfish in that way, but selfish in a good way.
And that's where it all begins. Once again, it's within you. It's within you, the listener. It's not within me, or it is within me for my stories, right? For me to work on myself, it's within me, but it's not outside, meaning it's not someone else is going to fix it for you. It's like, I can't do the work for you. I can't help you. I can try to articulate some stories that maybe resonate with you. I might be able to help you with some suggestions, but yeah, it's that internal work. It's that internal battle. And I think I mentioned this on the last episode. And if not, obviously I'll do it now, but I think these core wounds can propel folks to either, so self-sabotage, you can also flip that to like a positive. It's like you can be an overachiever, like you can never stop, like it's like it's never good enough. So because of that, you're just going to go do more. You know what I mean? It's like you can never give yourself permission to really be grateful for what you've accomplished up to that point. My self-sabotage pattern has been to shut it down. I just don't do much. Like I just don't complete projects. I would get started and then I would stop, whether it's even with a relationship or a business project. I've started and stopped so many things that like I said, if I listed it on social media, it'd be a post that would last for years. All the different things I've started and stopped. But yeah, it's that internal dialogue that we're having with ourselves every single day, getting comfortable with appreciating who we are in that moment. It's difficult, but I believe that if we can do the work, if you do the work, you can really start seeing some great changes in your own life. So as you're thinking through that, Greg, are you questioning some of the things that you're doing now, or do you see some of the triggers maybe showing up in a different way where, once again, like I've mentioned, is like I catch them in real time and it allows me then to respond differently to that trigger versus it taking control of my life and basically throwing me down a rabbit trail that I don't want to go down. Any thoughts on that part?
Yeah. So I think I'm definitely thinking of things a little bit differently now. I know I sent you a podcast last week.
You did.
And one of the things I took out of that podcast was basically I was chasing the podcast guest was driving home the point that a lot of people, I guess in the US or the Western culture, were chasing status and not happiness. And that one really like hit home for me because, in the real estate investing world or business world, it's, you're making money, it's numbers, it's figures, it's net worth, it's, all those, and those things are fine, but it's not the be all end all. At least my opinion, it's not, right? Some people it is, and that's totally cool. Like you said, people are nonstop and they're closing deals left and right. Cool. If that makes them happy, great. Maybe it doesn't make them happy and they just feel like they need to have that, that chase of the status. But I think I was on that treadmill for a little while of chasing the status and getting those numbers and everything. In the last 3 months, 6 months, maybe, I've been really diving into just happiness and studying. Like there's people out there that study happiness. They're like, I don't call them doctors of happiness, but they study it. And it's really, really interesting. And it really just made me think of like, well, what do I want my life to be like? Do I want to just chase status that might make me happy, or chase happiness and kind of forget about the status? Because I don't know, I've never been chasing things really all that much, but in some examples I kind of have. So yeah, so it's real interesting. It made me really dive into my own thoughts, and maybe this is like my midlife, awakening, or like, where's my life going? What's more important to me? Is it, making X amount of money and having that in the bank, or waking up every day and say, cool, I get to be on a podcast with Randy today. That's going to make me happy. And, but put happiness first, not maybe I'll be happy in 5 years when I achieve X, Y, and Z. I don't want to be that guy, because the next 5 or 10 years are going to be horrible and they're going to be a grind in my own mind. And I don't want that.
So it's changing that meaning. We talked about that on the last episode as well. Changing the meaning you're attaching to the term success. And like I said, everyone has their own explanation or their achievement, what they're trying to achieve, whatever success means to you, and changing that meaning, which is, that's what it sounds like. That's what I'm hearing you say, is you're trying to change the attachment or the meaning of success to happiness. And my argument is that happiness, once again, it comes from within. It's when you change the meaning, which is like you're changing the stories. You're changing your own story. You're in your own mind, telling you that you should do this, or you should do that, or you could be this, or you could be that. worrying about what other people are saying, worrying about what other people are doing, versus just really being with yourself in your own environment, being happy within your own skin, being proud of who you've become, stop attaching meaning to what other people are saying. It's tough. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, because it's not. It's not been easy for me. But if you can go through the exercise, which is what I'm hearing you say you're doing for yourself too, Greg, if you can go through those exercises, you really start to question a lot of the things you've probably done up to this point. That's how it's been for me. It's like, why did I shut down your focused vision? Why didn't I continue? And it's like, well, it's because of my self-doubt. It's because of my self-sabotage. And so then the thought again comes, well, okay, well, if I were to do this again, how would I be different? Those are the thoughts that I have in my mind. And which, once again, that's where I've brought the rich mind to life. And this time I'm doing it different. And we're going to get a different result. I don't know what that result is. I'm trying not to attach meaning to a future result that I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not here to do it. I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the downloads. I'm not doing it. Do I want it to be valuable? Do I want to get those things? Of course. I'm not, I'm human just like anybody else, but I'm not doing it just for solely those reasons. I really want this to be a diary that someday in the future, some future Wilson, a family member of mine somewhere when I'm long gone can pull up this guy named Randy Wilson. What's he all about? Why in the world does our family think and believe and see? And that's what I want this to almost be, is like a living, breathing diary of who I am. That's what keeps me going. And that's the story I tell myself. That's the meaning I've attached to showing up on the podcast. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're trying to do with your own choices. And it's, like I said, it's challenging, but it can be done. So congratulations, man. Good for you that you're doing that work for yourself. That's super cool.
Yeah, thanks. And I know you kind of touched on, basically leaving a legacy, right? You're leaving a video, audio legacy, and whatever Rich Mind turns into, right? And that's, one of the pillars that we talk about here. But yeah, one of the things that I want to talk about too is like the self-sabotage. It's familiarity, right? If you keep on doing it over and over again, because it's really, like you said, you have to put in the work, and the work is hard because you're doing the opposite of what is familiar to you every day. Even if it's negative, like you could have negative self-talk, but you're so used to it, it's familiar, that it's comfortable. Right. And you keep on doing it, you keep on doing it out of habit, sometimes even knowing, hey, this is not the way you should talk to yourself. You should speak better to yourself. You're having thoughts anyway. You might as well think positively. But that familiarity of, oh, it feels so good to be in this negative area because I've done it for so long, doing the work just seems like an uphill battle and I don't want to do it. And, that's maybe part of the avoidance that we're talking about, which, I've been guilty of. I know you mentioned you've been guilty of as well. So it's a lot of work and it's a lot of hard work. But once you put it in, you get that ball rolling, and then you never know how much momentum you're going to get. You
never know. And that's been my experience, is that yes, pushing through this comfort zone. So that comfort of safety, comfort of security is what I'm hearing you say there. That's where shutting it down for myself, my self-sabotage patterns, I would just stop because that felt comfortable, because I would not push myself beyond that limiting belief of I could or I should, that story I kept telling myself, that meaning I kept attaching to that trigger. It was safe. It was safer. It felt better. It's almost like a numbing effect. I would just turn it off. But that would keep me from accomplishing and doing the things that I needed to do out there to keep becoming the person who I'm meant to be. That's where it can be a lot of fun. It can be challenging, but yes, it can be rewarding at the same time. Had I not done the work, Greg and I, you and I wouldn't be friends. We wouldn't be having this conversation. And I know that for a fact, based on my past. I know that for a fact. So that's where sitting here today, I'm super grateful that I've pushed myself outside my comfort zone, worked on myself through my core wounds, understanding my triggers, understanding how they stack to the point where I can make different decisions. And because of those decisions, like you said, who knows where it's going to take me, which is super exciting. So someone listening to me in the future, way out there in the future, because of this digital footprint that I've put out there on the Rich Mind podcast, just to understand that, hey, I'm a work in progress. We all are. And you can do it too. And that's where it's super fun. That's where I just love jumping on and having these conversations. So Any more thoughts, man, before I think we'll probably start wrapping this one up here today? Any more thoughts on self-sabotage and things to leave the listeners today?
Yeah, I would just leave the listeners with, maybe a couple of questions that they can ask themselves, which is, like, first off, like, what lesson can I learn from understanding, my core wounds and the self-sabotage, like, cycle or process? So being aware of it. And then also, like, how can you flip that switch and reframe your thoughts about, is this helping me? Is this benefiting me? Even though I'm in, that familiarity of negative self-talk, even though it feels comfortable in a weird way, is that helping you achieve your goals? Is it helping you move forward with, whatever success looks like to you? So asking yourself those questions. I know Randy journals a lot and probably asks himself those kind of questions.
I do.
Yeah. So basically just, getting introspective and, like Randy says, just take some time, sit in a room and, put some ideas down on pen and paper or, however you want to do it. But those are the first steps to really kind of shifting your mind a little bit and getting that ball rolling.
Boom. We're going to leave it right there. That's fantastic. Take that action, folks. Start today. Work towards winning within. You've got to win within to win without. And if you do the work, go through the process, re-listen to these episodes as many times as you need to do that internal dialogue, work on that internal speech, attaching meaning to different things, changing that meaning once you become aware of it. Do the work, and I promise you're going to get a better result moving forward. So yeah, that was fantastic, Greg. Appreciate you sharing. Which leads us into the next episode. I'm excited to share the next topic. You brought this one to my attention. It kind of correlates with what we've been talking about today. So yeah, what's that topic going to be for the next time?
So next time we're going to be talking about self-compassion and inner self-talk, and basically how those correlate. I know a lot of people probably have that negative self-talk, and we're just going to dive into how self-compassion can really soften that up a little bit and really flip that switch for you.
Love it. So yeah, just quickly, and I'll get into this more in the next episode, but yeah, this is one thing that has really helped me as I've really begun to appreciate myself more than I used to. I used to be really negative towards myself. We'll get into more details of what I mean by that, but you might be having those same challenges as well, as you don't think highly of yourself. And we'll talk about why might sound selfish, but it's not. It's not selfish at all. And if you can work on that part of your personal development, once again, you can really take strides and achieve more out there in your relationships, whether you're building a business, every part of life. And yeah, self-love, self-compassion, that's going to be a fun conversation. So go out there, reach out to us, info@richmind.co, and let us know. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are about this episode and all the episodes up to this point. That'd be fantastic. Head over to richmind.co and grab the resources that we have available for you. We're trying to share and give you as much value as we possibly can, trying to help you on your journey, whatever your method and whatever you're trying to accomplish out there in life. Like we keep saying, it's like whatever success means to you. We want to try to help you with some of the stories, some of the things we've been through, and hopefully you're finding value in the message as well. So go out there, share this with your family and friends. We'd greatly appreciate that. And yeah, we look forward to coming back with the next episode again very soon. Have a fantastic day. Focus on being great, and we'll talk soon. Bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Rich Mind Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it with someone you know. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform and never miss an episode. One last thing, don't ever forget that your mind is the first place where wealth is created. Keep dreaming big, take action, and together, let's build wealth, a legacy, and a life we love.